Good morning, everyone. Today is the 24th of July. We are basically in the last week of the month, and what a week, right? It's going to be one of the busiest weeks of not just of the summer, basically of the year, because we are going to have the central bankers announcing their interest rates. We have going to be three of them, starting with FOMC on Wednesday, ECB on Thursday, and then BOG Friday morning, announcing as well. But aside from all this macro data, we are going to also have the peak of the Q2 earnings, with the big tech announcing between Tuesday and Thursday their earnings as well. So it's going to be the combination of earnings plus macro data and central bankers' decision as well. So expect high volatility in the market and a lot of movement ahead. Welcome again. My name is Pedro. I'm the senior market analyst at Alphachain, and today, as usually on Mondays, we do our weekly market analysis, paying attention to what happened last week, looking at the macro data also that was announced and how the market reacted to it, and of course focus already in this week's session. How are we expecting the market to move, and what kind of opportunities maybe we are going to look to take advantage of for the week ahead. So looking just at last week, right, we had a few CPI data announcements. We had it was a bit mixed in Canada, slightly higher than expected, with core CPI at this point at 5.1, a little bit 0.1% lower than expected, but still not below the last month, but a bit higher than expected. We had also in New Zealand a little bit mixed, but the main one, or the big one, it was in the UK. As you can see in here, last Wednesday it was announced, and it was slightly better than expected, which was good news for in the UK. Not just the normal CPI, which came up at 7.9% when the market was expecting 8.2%, but in more particular, the core CPI that finally moved to downside. As you can see, it was kind of in this bullish momentum, in this upper trend line, and finally it kind of printed a little bit lower than that at below 7%, which was a little bit key in terms of what to expect from the next meeting of the Bank of England, which is going to be the next week on the 3rd of August, if I'm not mistaken. And regarding to this data that we received, what would the Bank of England do? It would be another 50 basis points hike like it did in the last meeting, or maybe because now the core CPI actually it's now below 7%, if it's going to be only 25 basis points. Nevertheless, we are still expecting new hikes in the in interest rate in the UK, and at least towards to 5%, towards to 6% is kind of where we are looking ahead, and at this point is at 5%, like so at least 100 basis points more in there. Then we had unemployment, good results in Australia, and also the unemployment claims in the US. It was also even below the expectation, bringing this value here close to below the levels that were back in the beginning of April, right? So this range in here, at this point, we are at the lower edge in here. So that's kind of showing how tight still the labor market is in the US, and also in Australia, which is at this point unemployment rate at 3.5%. Aside from that, we also had the core CPI in Japan, as expected, 3.3%, slightly higher than the previous month. And this is going to create a lot of pressure in terms of what the Bank of Japan may do next Friday in the next monetary policy meeting. And that's basically the main data that we had from last week. In terms of the earnings, we had Tesla and Netflix, for example, announcing their earnings, and we saw the big, potentially a top or at least a high being created in the indices, Nasdaq, S&P, and so on. Like as you'll see a little bit when you take a look at the charts, have a potential reversal or top in the indices. They're still early to confirm, but for sure, the movement for this week that you're going to have is going to confirm it or not, or or this is just a retracement, and price then will continue to move to the upside. We'll see. It's going to be an important week, but last week with those earnings, it already helped maybe the top to be created. They kind of, it's more for the future outlook that it was not as good as maybe the market was expecting, which can create a little bit of a doubt of what Microsoft, Alphabet, Meta, Samsung, Amazon, and so on, like the big tech, are going to announce this week how their report is going to be, if it's going to meet the expectations, and in particular the future outlook as well, how it's going to happen, right? Because all this big rally that we have seen for the last few months, it's mostly AI driven, and these big 7 companies have been literally leading and pushing the market to the upside. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how well their earnings are going to be to support actually this momentum or not. And for sure, the indices and the market is going to react to it. Today, already we had PMI data being announced, manufacturing and the services. We started already with in the Eurozone and also in the UK. Again, continues to be worse than expected. Manufacturing below 50, that has been for a while now, but it continues to create new lows, which just shows the weakness in the economy at this point. And also the services PMI also continues to decrease, even though it's still above 50 in the Eurozone, in the UK, and most likely later on in the US, but it starts to create new lows. Like the tendency has been negative, which again, it raises a bit of concern of how well the economy is actually dealing with all these hikes that we have seen for the last year. Also, again, the fear of recession may start to appear. For example, we can look at the German, in particular, the manufacturing PMI at 38.8%. It's already even below 40. It was another big negative number. Last time it was below that level, forgetting about COVID, right? It was exactly back in 2009, like after the crisis that we had in 2008, right? So that's kind of the levels that you're looking at here, and this should tell us something as well. This one in here as well keeps decreasing, and we'll see if it's going to stay or sustain above 50 or not. So, as you know, later on in the afternoon, they're going to have in the US, and then is going to start all the economical data, right? So we're going to have consumer confidence tomorrow, and then we start with, then you have FOMC. So looking ahead for the FOMC and what we are expecting from the Fed, as you can see in here, we're looking for the forecast at this point for the hike, for what the Fed is going to do in regards to the interest rate, is basically pricing in at 99.8% possibility of 25 basis points hike this Wednesday, going from 5.25 to 5.5% the interest rate. And most likely this is going to be the last one. Like that's kind of where the market is positioning themselves, is actually this is going to be the last hike. Now, the main point of what we are going to be looking at for Wednesday is more of the speech and the tonality from the Fed Chair Powell in terms exactly of future guidance for what to look ahead, right? So that's basically the main point. If by any chance actually kind of with the tonality and the message that he's going to say is, yes, this is most likely the peak, and now it's going to be literally kind of just reassess and try to see how it's going to, how the economy is going to keep reacting. We had a really, as you know, 2 weeks ago, we had a really positive CPI data coming out, even the core CPI as well, right? And the market which reacted to it. So that it felt a little bit kind of a celebration of victory against inflation. It may still be too early, but that was how it felt in the market. So we'll see, right? Because you can see by the end of the year, at this point, it's still pricing in to be at the same rate, at 5.5%. And of course, that's going to be the next question, is for how long are you going to stay at this 5.5%, and when is going to be the rate cut being expected from the Fed. So that's kind of what the market most likely is going to try to find out, is when are we expecting to see a reduction in this rate. That's basically where the focus is going to be at this point. So that's what we are expecting from the FOMC, from the Fed during the FOMC meeting. And then on Thursday we have ECB, right? So, and the main point in the ECB, I think they're trying to change the tonality of their speech, right? They have been quite hawkish. Christine Lagarde has been quite hawkish on their commentary anytime they have this interest rate decisions press conference, or anytime she's speaking in public. And I believe that the ECB is trying to now change their tonality in terms of being a bit more neutral and not so hawkish, right? At this point, the ECB is at 4%. It's expected another hike for 4.25, and maybe that's still not the peak. Maybe that's going to be another 25 basis points in the future meetings. However, the main point is the tonality of the speech, of relaxing a little bit more, maybe being a little bit more data dependent, but maybe showing also that they have done too much in shortened period of time, and we'll see, right? As you can see, these data points in regards to the Eurozone that we just received today, and PMI, it shows weakness in the economy. Then employment as well. Again, there's going to be more CPI data being announced in the future. There's going to be 2 CPI data being announced before the next meeting in September as well, something that the ECB can reassess by then. So that's basically the main point with ECB, is a change of tonality that we are going to see during the press conference. And then moving ahead for the third bank decision is going to be the BOJ, right? So the Bank of Japan, which is going to be created, which is under a lot of pressure. We already saw last Friday an initial move to the downside in the yen index, which was a move to the upside on the dollar yen, for example, after there were some reports that the Bank of Japan is planning to continue to not do anything, like to stay the same, no yield curve control, no changes on the yield curve control, and of course, no changes in the interest rate neither, right? So that would be kind of the 2 ways that they could change something. But the pressure is going to continue as long as the dollar yen may continue to push or to retest again that 145 level, or even create or even going a little bit higher. That will be the moment that maybe the Bank of Japan may do something. Again, the inflation is still quite higher than expected. We are looking at those 2% target at this point, at basically 3.3%. So there's going to be pressure to be made. They're going to be under pressure. That's 100% sure. And looking at where the dollar yen is going to be around that period of time by Friday, it's going to be interesting if there's going to be something announced in there or not. But even if they don't do anything in this meeting, again, Bank of Japan can always intervene or surprise the market by intervening in the end. So they don't really need these meetings to actually do something. Like they can do something aside from being on this timeline of the meetings. So that's basically in terms of the 3 central bankers that are going to be taking decisions this week. Looking ahead for more data, we're going to have CPI in Australia, which was quite a positive last month. So they're looking ahead for maybe another positive CPI data in Australia. We are going to have also the first GDP, the quarter GDP, second quarter GDP announcement in here, expecting at 1.7%. Last quarter it was at 2%. So let's see how it's going to be in here. And employment claim again, expecting to be still indeed within that range, around 230. And then we are going to have another data of the core PC, like the inflation report that the Fed actually looks at. In this case, it's going to be after the Fed announcement. Usually it's the kind of a few days before, but at this point it's going to be after. And let's see if the data, if this core PC kind of reflects as well the good data that we received from the CPI data in the US, right? So it's going to be, as you can see, full data, macro data in here important, full of red news, high impact news happening all week. And again, not just in terms of macro data, but also in terms of the earning season as well. So looking at the market and what you are looking at, right? So last week, we saw the dollar reversing or retracing a little bit after 10 days in a row, basically moving to the downside. That started with NFP in the beginning of the month. Then we had the CPI also, and finally we reached this level in here. We took this the below, and we also went below the $100 mark in here. Meanwhile, last week we started having a little bit of a recovery, a retracement in here, and this week already starting with the strong dollar. In this case, actually, it's a weak euro with the PMI data that come out in the eurozone, and you're looking at the dollar moving to the upside. Like, the question mark is exactly that, right? Are you going to, by any chance, retest a little bit this level in here? Or are you going to find some kind of level of resistance in here that maybe can push price to the downside? So that's a little bit of what we're going to try to pay attention to. We literally ignored a little bit this previous level of support, so it didn't really work as resistance, which can now work actually again as support in here and push price a little bit to the upside. Personally, not the biggest fan of this double low that was created in there. However, on the eurozone, on the euro dollar, actually, we didn't really have a double top. It was a little bit different, so we could have seen that reversal setup on the euro. It was exactly around the level that we talked about, above the cap that was created in the beginning of the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. So let's see where the dollar is going to be, in particular by Wednesday, when we have the FOMC meeting, and then the continuation as well for the rest of the central banker's decision. So yes, let's see. Basically, we are going to be in between this range. Are you going to go all the way to test a little bit these highs and then maybe move downside? What kind of level of structure you are going to break in here on the dollar? We can keep trying to track this move upwards in here on the dollar to see until where it's going to have this this correction before maybe a continuation to the downside. So I'm open to basically all possibilities at this point on the dollar index. Now looking at the US indices, right? And this is where we saw a little bit of a reversal, not a little bit, a good retracement in here. Price is reacting from a good level on the left side, right? It's approaching this level of structure, just the same as the Nasdaq. We managed to break slight with this smaller trend line. We do have this bigger one, which is maybe the most important one that we need to see if it's actually eventually broken or tested before any big turn in the market. Even though we kind of broke a little bit this trend line, we never really broke this level of structure. This is actually kind of the key zone in here. For me, if we do start breaking below these lows, we may start opening door to go and retest maybe this previous level in here. That's kind of a good target to look for. As long as kind of this will kind of keeps holding it, we may just have the resume upwards, and we may even create new highs in here. Just looking a little bit more in detail, we actually can see that the highs in here on S&P, they were already taken in there. On Nasdaq, this level is still fresh, so that's just something to keep an eye on in terms of looking for still opportunities at the highs. Maybe on S&P, maybe these have been taken, and maybe can have a new high before any move down. On Nasdaq, that level is still good to look for a potential double top at the highs. Again, loads of data being announced in here, and earnings that's going to be able to affect the S&P. Looking in here, as I mentioned, Nasdaq, it had a little bit more of a move to downside comparing with S&P, again reacting from a good level on the left side, and we still have this upper trend line in here, which price is now getting really close by. We also have this previous level of resistance. Again, this level in here can be quite important to see if you do have a continuation to the upside, or if you do start breaking below that, we may have or start having this potential big retracement occurring in here. We can even go higher first before maybe moving to downside. For example, yeah, breaking this trend line, maybe then retesting trend line, and keep looking a little bit further down. Just looking a little bit more into the bigger picture in here. Like what we may have is exactly this level that we have, this previous level of resistance quite a few times. It looks like it was a key level that holds price for a while, this 15,293. And if by any chance that level is the one that is broken back, if price by any chance breaks below that level again, we may start making this kind of a move in here. So this level of previous level support resistance around this level can be really important to see if price sustains the momentum to the upside and eventually challenge and to create new highs, or if this by any chance is actually a potential zone of reversal. It's reacting from that level. It's an important one, and we are getting really close to the all-time highs back from the beginning of 2022. So expect again a lot of possibilities in here, opportunities in the market. Last week we are literally starting to look for bearish moves on Nasdaq. That's where we position ourselves last week. There are good opportunities. The difference that I mentioned before is that this level on Nasdaq is still fresh, so that can still work quite nicely as a potential sell in there, since this high never really reacted, opposite to the S&P. So we'll see what kind of a move we're going to have. I'll be surprised if this is not faked out in here, and maybe price then can retrace a little bit. So let's see again where is Nasdaq going to be by Wednesday. But even though at this point Nasdaq is not going to just wait for the FOMC, right? Any big earnings announcement is going to move the market. And one thing to be aware of is be careful, because those announcements, they may be really close to the end of the day. So expect some volatility close to the end of the session in the indices, right? Don't be surprised if you do have that big momentum of volatility to increase around that period, because that's when some of the announcements are going to be made. Then you have Dow. Now it's a little bit more bullish comparing with Nasdaq, and you may continue to go a little bit higher in here. Again, just keep following price and try to find if we are starting to have any kind of break of awards or not. At this point, this is for myself the key zone that you're looking at in terms of price respecting it and then moving to the upside, or kind of breaking it and maybe start opening doors to go a little bit lower. Like, you want to try to follow a little bit of which structure do you want to actually pay attention to. That's going to give you that clue as a barrier in there. And then you have DAX as well, has been kind of trending upwards. Again, this was the key zone in terms of looking for continuation to the upside, or even if breaks to look further down, and maybe can even fill out all of this. As long as this holds, price may just even continues to break new highs, and I believe we can do that. We just took some to these highs, and I think we can go a little bit closer to this level in here on DAX. It's a nice starting to create this kind of channel in here. So we'll see if that's going to happen in here before a reversal again in here. Looking at the other indices, right? And these are going to be important ones, because we're going to have ECB announcing, and usually there's going to be looking at Euro index can be a great clue to find out what you're expecting for the way the Euro is going to react during the ECB, right? In theory, usually we see Euro moving down, even though actually last month, with the last announcement, actually Euro into the upside. Like last ECB press conference, it was kind of price was somewhere in there, and they had the move to the upside. The previous one, Euro is kind of somewhere in here, and actually went to the downside. So with the change of tonality that you're expecting from ECB, let's see exactly if you're expecting a sell-off on the Euro or not. Bigger picture, this is exactly what you're expecting. That level, as we mentioned, it was still fresh, and that's exactly where price reacted last week. Created the highs in there, and then we start having this sell-off again. We monitor the break of the trend line, and there you go. We have now this continuation, and maybe we can target somehow these lows in here, even though this actually maybe already engulfed to the downside, and we may start actually looking for the potential move in here on the Euro, right? So we may be actually close to big reversal on the Euro. There's still a good opportunity for price to retest these levels, and before even making a move to the downside, taking this level in the air, going there, and then moving down. So again, really interesting opportunities that we may see in here on the Euro. Let's see where it's going to be by Thursday as well. Again, when you do have that ECB press conference. And then we have the yen index, right? And this is going to be another one. So we have been now within this range. And right? Price went to the upside, it retested that level, start moving to the downside, and there's maybe a little bit more room for price to go down and retest this level in here. So we could, for example, retest this level and move to the downside. In here again, let's see which direction actually this yen index is going to break through. If if the yen index starts approaching again these levels and these lows, most likely are going to see dollar yen getting closer to that 145, which is going to start creating more pressure on the Bank of Japan as well to start doing something, right? To intervene in some way, and to see this yen continue to devalue like this. So yeah, interesting level of structure that we have in between this range. So let's see when price gets a little bit closer to the extreme, how exactly is going to react. So again, really important week ahead exactly for these three currencies: the dollar, then the euro, and then the yen, just following each one of those central bank decisions that we're going to have this week. Looking at individual currency pairs, right? Looking at the euro, again, move to the downside. And as I mentioned, the difference between dollar index is that we actually created a new high in here, while dollar index respected the double low. Euro actually went a little bit higher. It faked out that level that we're looking for. It was created with a gap during the war, right? This gap needed to be filled. It was filled. It even broke slightly the high. And then you had the turn, and we are approaching now which is this previous level of support resistance. So let's see actually how euro is going to react from here, or by any chance if you're actually starting to have this big reversal, and that may be in alignment with what we just saw on the euro index, right? Let's see how price could react from here. Again, today you already had this big sell-off with the negative PMI data that came out in the Eurozone, in France, Germany, and in general in the Eurozone. And this is basically what you're looking at on the euro. There's maybe more opportunities to sell, even if price kind of retraces. Again, plenty of opportunities ahead. Expect a lot of volatility in the market for this week. Then we look at the pound dollar. It was another one that you're looking for a potential high being created, and that's exactly what happened with reinforcement. When you did have that CPI data being better than expected, we finally saw a little bit of relief on the pound moving to the downside in here. So what exactly are we looking for? Yeah, we may fill out this. We may go all the way back to 1.26. We'll see. You may have a little bit of a retracement now, but price could even retest this level and then continue to move to the downside towards this level. We're compressing a little bit now. It looks like we could have a little bit of a retracement, but I believe maybe there's going to be a continuation from that level. So basically, initially, the range that you're looking for is in between these lows and that high. And if you by any chance, if you even break below that level, you can even start aiming further down. So yeah, we'll see exactly what may happen in here on the pound. But from last week that you're looking for that sell, that happened quite nicely. Aussie is a little bit more in a range, and that's kind of what we have at this point. Positive unemployment data last week, and they're going to have CPI also in Australia being announced this week. So a little bit more indecisive. So we'll see what's going to happen in here. Looking ahead for the yen pairs, right? And this is kind of what we are looking for. Again, the move to the upside on the dollar, on the dollar yen in particular, right? Pushing, if the dollar actually continues to push closer to this 145, that can be to raise the concern in the Bank of Japan. So that's kind of going to be the big question, right? In this case, the dollar is not going to be just yen, right? It's going to be initially with the dollar index, with the FOMC and all the data that's coming out from the dollar. And then, of course, on Friday is going to be the yen that's going to move this currency pair. Yes, a move to the upside in here is going to create a lot of pressure on the yen. I believe eventually we are literally kind of in the middle. This can even maybe be seen as an engulf down. I believe that eventually we are going to go all the way up to fake out these highs before any move down. I still keep an eye on that level in there. So we may have that continuation to the upside. Maybe test this level and just continue slowly moving moving upwards, which could also be pushed with the FOMC if you are actually looking for the maybe for the dollar to move to the upside. So yes, it's going to be interesting. Just bear in mind that exact level is more pressure for the yen and the Bank of Japan in there. For example, we had euro yen breaking the highs last Friday, and now kind of already resuming a little bit to move to the downside, like a little bit more bullishness in here on the euro yen after respecting that level that you're looking for. So let's see what's going to happen next in here. Is it going to be another continuation, or by any chance we are going to start being within this range in here on the euro yen? Also pound yen is a little bit more in the size as well, a little bit more in the middle, but this is the range kind of where we're trading at this point. So let's see exactly how it's going to move from here, and Aussie yen also a little bit similar as well in here, right? So that's a little bit of what we have on this yen pairs. Again, looking at the yen index, it may help to find a good opportunities in there. And then we have CAD pairs. Like there was one of the biggest moves of the week last week. It was on the CAD pairs. We had, for example, pound CAD dropping all the way from that level that we talked about as well, that important high from there. That was a good sell opportunity that happened last week, and this may be just a continuation now to the downside. It was already a great sell opportunity. Also, EuroCAD, it offered exactly something similar all the way from those highs, a level that we were looking at, and continuation to the downside, and we now maybe target that zone in there. And then on the pound, on the dollar CAD, right, something that we're looking at, the break of this high, it kind of opened the door maybe to go higher, or at least to look for a potential long from these walls. And in this case, this is the range that you're looking at. Again, positive. The CPI data, it was a bit mixed last week in here. So let's see. There's not going to be much data coming out for in regards to Canada. However, of course, dollar CAD is going to be moved also based on what the dollar is going to do this week. So, question mark: are you going to break this size and continue to move to the upside, or are you going to kind of resume the move to the downside and kind of retest these lows again? Again, this may be a little bit of a ranging market. If that's something that you like to trade, that's maybe a good opportunity. We had a little bit of a correction on the dollar franc Swiss after the big sell-off that we had as well, like the dollar index helping the dollar franc Swiss to move a little bit more to the upside. That's kind of what we have in there. And then we have gold moving, correcting a little bit. If you reach one of our initial targets that we had after all this move to the upside, it was to fill all this compression, right? For price to retest that zone, and that's basically what we had in here. Now, question mark is: are you going to resume the move to the downside or not? This is the range at this point that we have. There's maybe more opportunities to sell in there, but this structure in here is quite important as well. This could just continue to push gold to the upside. Again, looking at the dollar and how dollar is going to react, most likely is going to help to define as well what we can expect in here from gold, right? Yep, a little bit in the middle. It's going to be interesting to see. But to move to the upside in here that you're looking for, it reach a target, the extreme of this compression that's done in here. We may break eventually this highs and maybe retest a little bit this level. If you keep respecting it, maybe then the tendency it can be to go down and to retest these lows in here. So that's something to keep an eye on in there. And then you have oil, which continue this bullish momentum, right? We're testing this $77 mark, and you may just continue to go higher. We are literally retesting the highs, and maybe the aim in here is to go maybe above that level, basically touching the $80 mark. Now, getting really close to the $80 mark can be a target for this move to the upside in here. We'll see. Maybe price is not going to move just in a straight line in there. Can even go a little bit down first before maybe continue to go higher. Looking ahead, this is basically the range now that we are trading at this point from these highs and kind of those lows, in particular these lows in here. So yes, I wouldn't be surprised if price by any chance actually goes maybe a bit higher in there and getting closer to this price in here. Meanwhile, intraday we may have some potential shorter opportunities in here to look for. This starts to be a lot of compression in here. So if you do have maybe a proper break in here of the lows, we may feel this zone in here again. Yeah, it's going to be again another one that is in a interesting level to look for good opportunities in the market. And then just to conclude, as always, we pay attention to crypto as well, and looking at the crypto total market. Right, it has been a quiet couple of weeks in crypto, but it's quiet kind of 10 days. This second part of July has been quite slow in the crypto space. After you had that move, again, price is still within the same range that you're looking for, which is exactly that level, right? Kind of looking ahead to see if price breaks this level, starts opening door more to the downside, or if by any chance price keeps holding this level and starts challenging the highs again. Kind of that's a little bit of what you're looking for in here. To see what may happen, we start having a little bit of the structure. That was a good zone that was still fresh. Price already tested from there. So yes, we could have even for this will be a potential good setup for a sell if that's kind of what you'll be looking for. Breaking these lows, then kind of go higher, and then kind of retesting from this level in there, and then resuming to move to downside, maybe targeting this level in here could be a potential setup, which kind of would be quite similar on Bitcoin. Like this level still fresh. We start having too many highs in here in alignment, and you already know what may happen when you do have too many highs in here. It could be exactly just something similar of a move in here on Bitcoin, right? Retesting this level in here can be interesting. This could hold price a little bit to the upside, but this level in here is still quite strong as well, and it's still fresh. So that's a little bit between this ranging market that we have at this point. Is a way that could be traded if price actually starts behaving like that. If initially take these lows, then I wouldn't be surprised if by any chance we kind of retest back to this level, not taking these highs in here, and then it may continue to move down. Ethereum a little bit more of the same. We kind of broke a little bit the structure again. This is not exactly the only thing. It's a little bit of just all the structure here at the walls, but it's interesting to see that we start to break at least this structure in here, not really managing to break these highs. Nevertheless, this level in here is quite strong. Ethereum, it still even has a little bit of a potential fake out of this high into that level before a move to downside. Like it doesn't need just to respect this level, it can still even go a little bit higher this level in here before a move to the downside. So it has still two good levels in there to look for a sell opportunity. Bitcoin kind of just has a little bit of one. This one also, it's a little bit more of that one in there. So that's a little bit of what we have. Let's see if it's going to be created more momentum in here, and price finally moves away from this small range that we have been trading from for the last 10 days or so. So we'll see exactly what's going to happen. Maybe all this macro data is going to help as well in terms of movement in the crypto space. But I am looking ahead as well, just similar to the indices, that we are in a really interesting level with price the high is approaching a really important level on the left side. It's going to be a kind of Bitcoin. It's also kind of reacting from a similar zone as well, looking left, with a specific zone at the lows that needs to hold. Otherwise, you start opening door for a further move to the downside, and you may have a deeper retracement than it is maybe initially anticipated. Just like in the indices, just in particular in Nasdaq, this level in here, it's a key zone to look for around this level, to see if you are going to by any chance hold this level and then resume the move to the upside with the help of this trend line, or if you start breaking below that, we may have a deeper retracement in here. Even though we may have a first move upwards, we may have then a deeper retracement. So that's a little bit of what you're looking for. Again, the Euro index at this point is even a little bit more clear than the dollar index in here, looking to see if how price is going to react from that level. And if you manage to break these walls again, this may open the door for the Euro index to do something like this, and the N pairs within that range to see which FX is going to go to, and if the dollar yen is going to get closer to the 145. That's basically the main points to look ahead for this week. Again, we need to bring your A game into this this week. There are going to be plenty of opportunities, and it's going to be even more of if you are ready or not to take advantage of those opportunities, more than even how much the market moves, right? Market can move a lot, but if you are not ready, if you are not focused and concentrated on your own trading and being disciplined, you may miss all of those opportunities, and actually you can even do something worse, which is start rushing behind the price and actually changing price, taking trades that they are not there just because you start feeling FOMO, right? So preparation is key. Try to make your own scenarios of what price may do on a daily basis, and expect high volatility in this week. That's my advice for you guys for this week. Again, don't need to feel FOMO. Price will provide us plenty of opportunities to try to take advantage of. So stay focused, stay disciplined, and follow your strategy. With that being said, thank you very much. Feel free to ask any comments, any questions, to comment anything down at the comment section. With that being said, thank you very much. Wish all the best for this important week that you're going to have this week. Thank you. Bye-bye.